Not a great start is on a mulligan to 5. And Percy Fang on the other side with mono red, who we saw a little bit of yesterday. Play a couple hired claws here and there in the feature match area.
So bad news for Xander, of course, being on the draw against red and then on the mulligans. But historically, this is a pretty good matchup for Pixie.
Yeah.
Just casting nowhere to run over and over and over again. And this is the more aggressive version of Pixie, too, where we have the scavengers. And, it's a deck that can turn the corner pretty quickly.
Yep.
And more importantly, size up, which is great. So blocking is viable. And then, of course, turning the corner and attacking is very viable, too.
Are scavengers actually good in the matchup? Or is that something where you side out for more removal type thing?
I could see wanting to kind of tailor your deck a little more post-board,
yeah,
have more removal, but I think it's totally fine in game 1.
Yeah, I think that's a card that it just screams to me play draw. I want that on the play, on the draw, it's meh. But here's Hopeless Nightmare. Maybe another reason why this deck has fallen off a little bit is back in the day in Standard, people would just put a card into the graveyard and they would lose 2 life and they'd move on. These days, half the time there's a Baloth, half the time there's a Liege coming into play. And, these cards look a little bit worse. Even decks that couldn't cast Baloth were playing them a little bit, which ends up being really brutal. Also brutal, Xander, after 2 mulligans, was only able to muster up a one-lander anyways, which you got to just feel like I just got to the feature match finally, and this is how my deck is going to repay me.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, that Scavenger Exchange was actually very good for Xander. I mean, spending 1 mana to have them spend their entire turn 2 on a removal spell is pretty good.
Yep.
But can't afford to stumble here. The Pixie deck, the mana base of the Pixie deck is a little iffy at times. The 3-color mana base, need to have your right colors, need to actually draw the lands too.
Yeah.
It's a deck that does want to keep casting spells over and over again, but you need the ability to do that.
Yeah, another no land play just makes a 1-mana 2/2 that can't block either of the creatures from Percy, which is pretty brutal. And just not a great start at all for Xander.
Yeah, this sort of snowballing advantage too. You look at the board here, you see the Hired Claw can pump. We see the Sanctuary can come alive as well.
Yeah.
So even if Perseus doesn't have a spell here, just animating Soulstone end step, untapping, more threats. We rage into, this is honestly, I think, a benefit for Xander. We'll just get this game over with.
Yeah.
The reality is that this happens sometimes. You're going to mulligan to 5. There's nobody plays an entire tournament without mulligan to 5 at least a few times and having a game like this. So it's fine. Take your lumps, pack it up, and go to game 2.
Not me, man. I don't mulligan to 5. I just keep my hands. They're bad. Don't get me wrong. They're bad hands, but you just start with more cards if you don't mulligan.
Clear eyes, full 7, never mulligan.
Exactly. The Seth school of thought. Yep, and he does pretty well, so...
Not too bad for himself.
Exactly. So the Lizard comes down. It did look like Percy was either very close to Hellbent or no more cards in hand. Get a Caves off the top, so we can start casting some spells. This feels like, turn 2, the thing you want to be doing against red. Nowhere to run, kill it. Turn 3, Pixie, bounce, nowhere to run. Like, that's when I can do that sequence up against this deck. I don't care what I played on 1. It could be Hopeless Nightmare, it could be Scavenger. I feel like I'm going to win the game.
Yeah, unfortunately, might be a little too late here.
Yeah.
Percy's in a spot where any draw is good. A land is good. Activate the creature land. Spell is good. It's a spell. So with 4 life points for Xander, we could see how this could be played out with more lands.
Yeah.
But a little too late.
That was one of the worst top decks, but still good enough.
Yep.
Swift Spear coming in. Xander going down to 3. Now you are forced to block. It doesn't matter. It's lethal.
Yeah, with the monster roll and the pump as well.
Yep. Any blocks there, it's going to be Xaxes. And game number 1 heading to Percy Fang and his really cool take on Mono Red, which you were saying this is kind of the list that just won the most recent Magic Online Challenge, right?
Yeah.
With the Lizards.
Might add 4 main deck Lizards, but I think that Magebane Lizard is the new tech for Mono Red in this Izzet world. And Mono Red actually had a very good day yesterday.
Yeah, it did.
Win rate rise, it was well above 50%. Pretty good conversion also. And would not be surprised if Magebane was the catalyst for that. Finding a way to kind of turn this Izzet matchup and then have good matchups across the field as well.
All right, so from our Lizard King, Percy Fang, what are you sideboarding in here up against Esper?
So barrages look pretty good. Sunspine Links plays pretty well here. Esper obviously playing a ton of non-basics.
Yep.
The fear is that Esper is a deck that can attack you. So on the draw, it can be a little risky. Depends on how aggressively you think Xander's going to sideboard. Are those scavengers going to stay in, or are they going to come out? So could be more of a play draw kind of thing with the Lynxes. But Earthly Barrages are pretty good. I think it's more of the same Percy.
Okay.
You know?
And then for Xander, what are we doing here?
More removal. Grim Bauble is not a fantastic Magic card, but kind of what the Doctor ordered here. You know, the games where Xander draws nowhere to run and does not draw nowhere to run are night and day.
Yeah.
Because drawing one copy of a card is like drawing 5. You know, so if Xander doesn't have access to that effect, it can be real problematic. So bringing 2 more, worse nowhere to runs, but still quite good.
So I have a serious problem, okay, Jim? I have been playing this blue-white control list, right? And my list is nowhere near like Chris Patello's, you know, but I want it to be Chris Patello's, but I don't have any more money, okay? I'm fresh out. So I really need to turn some of my cards into like store credit or cash or something. Do you have any solutions for me?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
Sellyourcards.starcitygames.com.
Okay.
Right? You can sell for cash if you need to, if you're a little strapped.
But I'm going to buy Magic cards anyways, though.
Right.
So, like, is there a better situation?
I got you with the cash. I'll buy that tonight. Don't worry about it.
Okay, sure.
But you're going to buy more Magic cards for sure. There's no way, no how. Don't lie to yourself. So you sell them in, you can get an uptick on the credit, which is great. You can have a little bit of a bankroll. So whether you're shopping online or at an event, you can go to the booth and say, hey, give me 4 Eddie Mer Crab, put it on my tab, and you're all good to go.
Thank God. Thank God. I need those additions in that deck because I'm going to be playing some more blue-white control. But, yeah, you've solved my problems. I appreciate it, Jim.
No problem. I mean, and I'm buying dinner, too. I got hustled here.
Wow. Yeah. Yes. All right. All right. I hear there's a Fogo de Chao here around the corner. You in?
You are not a cheap date.
No. Absolutely not. This is why I don't have any more money.
we got to talk about your spending.
Yes.
You're a little out of control.
My family is starving. I keep buying Magic cards. All right, looks like we are reading this case, which that's a powerful card. Do you think that one's coming in? Probably not, right?
I gotta do, honestly.
Yeah?
Yeah, the case is kind of a good grindy card for red, and the solve condition on the case is to be empty-handed.
Sure.
So if you get into a Hopeless Nightmare kind of game, it can be pretty good there. You know, the red deck really does have to have a way to kind of push through all these removal spells.
Yeah.
So when you have these non-creature ways to gain more advantage, they do work pretty well in that regard. So I think case is probably coming in.
Okay. So one thing I was wondering, we're probably bringing in those Sunspine Links as well, and if we're bringing in Case, you know, we're definitely slowing down our game plan a bit, but, you know, Witchstalker Frenzy, the Lizards, they don't seem amazing. The one thing I'm always curious about, as I don't play the red decks a ton, you know, it's not necessarily my favorite style of deck, although I have all the respect in the world for it. You know, it's a fantastic deck. Do you ever consider trimming? I know this is going to just be a sin to say live on air here, but do you ever consider trimming Monstrous Rage up against a matchup that has so much removal? I mean, historically, pump spells up against a deck that is killing all your creatures, bad. But is this just too unique, too powerful of a pump spell to ever cut?
I think that you do want to board out Monstrous Rage in scenarios where they're overloaded with removal spells. However, this is not a pure removal spell matchup.
Okay.
You know, if you're playing against, you know, mono black demons, they just have like 14 removal spells, or a controlled deck, it's just like a million like lightning helixes, sweepers, temporary lockdowns, you know, and you are concerned with actually having a creature in play, Rage can be bad. But there is blocking going on here. You know, there are a lot of creatures in this Pixie deck. Whether the Scavengers stay in or not, there's still Pixies and Fear of Isolations. Plenty of things that block reasonably well, and Rage can push through those. I can see shaving down.
Sure.
But, you know, there is some pressure where the red deck wants to get in, get a few early creatures, and especially on the play, you can kind of overwhelm the Nowhere to Runs. So you have enough things in play where Nowhere to running one thing, there are still other things getting through.
Okay.
Definitely gets worse on the draw.
That makes sense.
So
I have some of those games, you know, when I'm playing a red deck, rule, this, whatever, where, you know, I go creature, they had the removal spells, and all of a sudden I look down at 2 Monstrous Rages with my opponent at 14, and I'm like, God, did I screw up? Like, this is the card, you know, so I feel like I should never take it out. But, yeah, I was curious on your opinion on that one.
Yeah, I think boarding out Rage, there are definitely times you want to do that, for sure.
Almost never all of them, though, right? Is there any matchup you actually take all the Rage out?
I think if you're playing, it's a pure control deck. They can all come out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Again, play draw dependent, because when you are on the play, you can often find a spot where you can kind of sneak it in. But you don't want to be in a spot where, like, it's turn 7, they're at 10. You have a 2/2 in play. That's not Emberheart Challenger, let's say.
Yeah.
You know, and you just attack, and they say, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to cast Monstrous Rage into 5 open mana? You kind of can't, you know. And
you're like, you got it? Yeah, of course I got it.
Right.
It's turn 8.
You know, whereas the Pixie deck is likely to tap out for some stuff at some point, have some blockers in play. But against pure control decks, yeah, absolutely I think Rage should come out.
Love it. All right, let's get it going here. These players are ready to go. Xander with a Hopeless Nightmare to begin. Discards a Mountain here from Percy. And Percy jams the Hired Claw once again. I feel like it was Percy that, what did we see, like a 5/6 Hired Claw yesterday?
Yeah. and a handful of 4 mountains.
Yes. Yeah, may have not won the game with that, but it was still incredible. So here is Hopeless Nightmare number 2. The Nightmare continues.
It is interesting how this Pixie deck is kind of an A+B deck.
Yeah.
Where you want to draw a thing to bounce and things to bounce them with. Yeah, Nightmare time. Not the best matchup for it, though.
Yeah.
And then the thing you are bouncing strongly influences how the game is going to play out. So against a control deck, this would be great. Sharp bounce of a Nightmare, but you got to find that first Nightmare. Against an aggro deck, you got to find that first removal spell. Nowhere to Run and the sideboard Grim Baubles. So not having one yet is kind of telling of Xander's hand.
Yep, totally agree. 3 of a kind from both players. 3 Nightmares, 3 mountains heading to the yard. It's kind of poetry.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing where against this Hopeless Nightmare deck, you can kind of keep some sketchier hands because you know it's probably like a 6 or 5 card hand anyway.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to actually be a 6 or 5 card hand. So you can keep that 4 or 5 lander with a good 1 and 2 drop, dump those extra mountains, like to keep from Percy.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. Let's see what the follow-up for Xander is. Like, Nowhere to Run, Bauble. I mean, Grim Bauble is no longer viable anymore, but Xander needs to just control creatures as they come in. If you can control the first 2 and you give yourself this heavy leeway, this lot of breathing room, then it ends up being a lot better.
One really important thing about playing against this Pixie deck is sizing is really, really important. Almost all of their removal spells are predicated on power and toughness. So if Percy can go up here on this Hired Claw to get it up to 4 toughness, you can get to a point where Nowhere to Run can no longer kill it. Grim Bauble could no longer kill it.
Yeah.
So it seems kind of weird against a deck with removal spells to be committing mana into a threat like this. But once you size up, now it's going to be very, very hard for Xander to answer.
Totally agree. All right, other Hired Claw here is, and they work together. You do get to deal 2 when you attack, as well as, now take 2 more from this claw. Percy missing land 3. Well, they're all in the graveyard, so that's where they went. Witchstalker Frenzy, though, also just being in the deck, it's strange to me.
Yeah, I think Frenzy is worse than the other removal spells, be it Lithomantic Barrage or a Torch Tower.
Yeah.
And you also might not be in a spot where there's enough attackers, but...
Yeah, the only time I ever like Frenzy is when I see a bunch of Shield Reds, but there are 0 of that card, and there's only 2 Preachers in the list, so... Yeah.
I mean, that being
strange.
said, it is the only real answer to Preacher,
yeah.
Aside from double spelling it with a Burst Lightning and another removal spell.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was a Scorching Shot also. But
yeah.
Or a Kick Burst Lightning. But Kick Burst Lightning is a reasonable enough buyout, I think.
Yeah.
Where I think you wouldn't need as many Frenzies unless there was some 5-toughness creatures.
So Xander's done this incredible job of actually casting spells this turn and getting all these Hopeless Nightmares down, ripping apart Percy's hand. But this hired help here from Percy, these Hired Claws are just going to just go the distance if there's not a way to clean them up. Like, I mean, they deal so much damage. Now, when you attack with 2 Hired Claws, it deals 4 damage, right? Like, they each trigger?
Each one sees the other, yes.
Yeah, okay.
They each want to see, is there any other attacking lizards?
Yeah, so 4 damage.
Any attacking lizards, period.
Sure, so 4 damage to the face, 5, 6, 7. Could be 8 damage coming in from these lizards.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. It's 1 damage for each claw.
Okay. It doesn't stack the 2-way.
It doesn't count the lizards. It just says, did a lizard attack, take 1.
I'm always playing against the deck, and I just never want to confirm for sure if it's the case, so I kill the creature instead. I know it's a bold strategy, but... So it looks like we are within combat. So this town bouncing a Nightmare and doing that. That was a decision because the other thought was this town... I don't know how many cards are in hand from Percy, but I think we were hellbent. Like, I think there's 2 cards now, the one we just drew. So another option you could have is this town during Xander's turn, bounce the big Hired Claw, replay Hopeless Nightmare, and get the Hired Claw. But maybe I missaw how many cards were in hand.
I think either way it looks good mana-wise, because I don't think there's much to spend this Darkslick Shores mana on. So I think I agree with that.
Yeah. And now the Hopeless Nightmare will get the 1 card from Percy, but...
Still looking for that removal spell.
Yep.
Got to find a bobble. Got to find a nowhere to run.
Yeah, and while this town ain't big enough, is just a phenomenal card in this deck. It's not that good against red when you're bouncing your opponent's things,
It's good in conjunction with other things.
Yeah.
If you are using it to, rebuy your removal spells, rebuy your value, and then also buy a little time, it can be quite good. But haven't found that removal spell yet and haven't found a clock of any kind either, so bouncing 1 mana creatures is not so nice.
Damage, ping, ping. And now you could just go pump both claws. And, I mean, it's pretty clear that there is no removal spell. Otherwise, you would do it pre-combat. Looks like Percy is valuing animating the Soulstone Sanctuary. And there is... When the Hopeless Nightmare flips to yourself, when you have to sack that to surveil against red.
Yeah, I feel like sizing up there was pretty appealing. Having a 4 toughness and a 3 toughness creature in play, now Bobble's no longer viable.
I agree.
And then the 4 toughness creature, just having the 1 Higher Claw at 4 toughness is awesome.
Yeah.
Because
if you ever draw land 5, then you can just attack anyways with the Sanctuary.
Right, and then pumping against also an option. And you also are at the point now where, because Xander has so much mana, if a nowhere to run is drawn, it could end up being cast multiple times.
Yeah.
And now these creatures are all vulnerable to that. I mean, even 6 land, nowhere to run, pixie it back, nowhere to run, pixie it back, or whatever else it might be. Some combination thereof, where, I don't know. So interesting choice here.
I'm with you, and I think that was a good lesson for players. When Percy attacked, it doesn't matter if Xander had the 2 cards or whatever in hand or 15. A removal spell's not there. You're at such a low life total. Xander doesn't have the play of where you can just absorb some extra damage here. Not with the Esper Pixie deck. So that should have been a wide open call from Percy that these lizards were not getting killed. So just boost them up. So I'm totally with you. I would have did that for sure from Fang's side.
Kind of funny here. That's kind of can get lost a little bit in the mix. Percy's at 8.
Yeah.
Hopeless Nightmare damage does add up.
It truly does. I mean, we've cast 5 of them so far.
Yeah, is it 5 or 6?
Yeah, maybe 6, but it
6,
didn't matter. All the Hopeless Nightmares in the world were not enough, and Percy Fang is going to take this one down in pretty, impressive fashion to start that off. Yeah.